Okay, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to our Fall Ash Lectureship series. We're so thankful that you are here today for this wonderful treat. Just a reminder of who the Ashes are who have made this wonderful day possible. Stanley Ash has been a longtime friend and donor of the college, along with his wonderful wife, Blanche. They have since departed, but a few things about their background you need to know. He was our first board chairman when the school began to exist on March 2nd, 1965. And in April of 65, they realized that the millage would not kick in for a bit, and so he gave us $2,000 to jumpstart the school. So he was the very first donor of the institution at that point in time. And in 1981 became the first chair of our MCC Foundation, and also was the head of that for some good years. Their generosity has resulted in the Stanley P. Ash building on this campus that houses our nursing and science departments, and of course the Stanley and Blanche Ash Technology and Learning Center in Greenville, where we're going to have this event later on tonight as well. So their benevolence has been wonderful for our college through the years, including a large endowment that we call the Ash Cultural Enhancement Fund. And from that fund, we have allocated resources for the Ash Lectureship, which takes place 3 times a year, winter, spring, and fall. And it gives to us a chance to bring scholars here from the national platform, international platform, to address topics of special interest to us and to our campus. So we're thrilled so much to have you here and be a part of this year. We have a very special guest today, a scholar who was born and raised in Hong Kong. His undergrad and graduate work was done at the University of Zurich in Switzerland, where he met his lovely wife, Mrs. Chan, and then from there to Bonn University in Germany to get his first PhD, his second PhD at Syracuse University, in his spare time an MBA at MIT. He has lectured literally around the world. He presented at Harvard just recently. He's going down in St. Louis on Thursday for the National Convention of the National Asiatic Society. He is well-written. He has spoken in a wide variety of different contexts. He knows 7 languages well, has taught those languages. Professor at Michigan State University for quite some time, full professor there, and also University of Michigan. So I asked him who he's going to root for on Saturday. He said either way he wins. So we're thankful for that, at least that dualistic loyalty there, Dr. Chan. I'd like you to know that he and his wife will celebrate their 50th anniversary this coming January. And so we're delighted that she can be with us today as well. So we rarely get a scholar of this level to address us. He has done a lot of work in mathematics and IT and also cultural studies and language. And he is the one who designed the exhibit that you see in our student activities building on calligraphy. So I would like you at this juncture to again please help me welcome to our podium Dr. SuiWah Chan. Dr. Chan.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gary Hauk, for your generous introduction. It's certainly a very great pleasure and honor to be with you today. My topic is about something rather unique in the world of languages. And I'm going to talk about the Chinese writing system. Chinese writing system is unique because almost all the languages that you might have learned are alphabetic. That means the writing are no more than transliteration of how you speak that language. So hat, H-A-T, basically gives you the hints for spelling that word, hat. It has no reason or rhyme why H-A-T is what signifies this. And in French, it is chapeau. So, in other words, these are all sound-based writing. Writing that is based on sound, based on letters of an alphabet. But none of that is in Chinese. That's why a lot of students are very confused when they first come to a Chinese language class. They look around, there's no alphabets. So how do you do a study of language without alphabet? It's nonsense. But if you think about it, there was a Jesuit. His name was Joachim Bouvet, a Jesuit who studied and came to China after Matteo Ricci. And he wrote a letter to Wilhelm Leibniz and says, you know what? Chinese that I saw has nothing to do with the ear. It is a language of the eyes. There you have it. Human beings have only two kinds of communication. Think about it. Either you get it through your ear or else you get it through your eyes for long distance communication. So, would you wonder that other than writings that is based on hearing, sound, that there are other kind of writing that is based on the eyes instead of the ear? You see here? We get so used to thinking about writing that is based on alphabets, which is basically derived from the sound. It has no meaning. HAT has no meaning whatsoever. You assign the meaning to a sound, and you write down the sound. But if you do that kind of writing, would you be able to read Old Greek? Would you be able to read anything before Shakespeare? Old English? Would you be able to understand? Not quite. Not quite. So, I'm going to start talking about how Chinese writing come about. So that's the topic of the genesis of Chinese writing. Chinese writing is graphics, is visual. It has to do with our capacity for pattern recognition, graphics recognition. Not so much as a writing of the sound of the spoken language. So Chinese has two things. It has a language and it has a writing system, which is rather independent from the spoken language. As a graphics language, it is really not the only one that human beings has tried. The Babylonians, the Sumerians have done that. So did the Egyptians have done that too with their hieroglyphs. They are originally based on graphics, pictographs. In other words, you recognize the writing by seeing the meaning conveyed by the graphic form, not through the sound. Without the sound, you just look at the picture and you know, oh, this is the sun and that's the moon, and so on. Look at this. This is a masterpiece from the 3rd century, written in what we call standard script, the kind of script that we use today. By the way, more than 1 billion people today are using this script in this writing. It has already been done since the 3rd century. Just like that. Is there any letters of alphabet that you can detect? None whatsoever. Is there any clue how to speak them? None whatsoever. Any idea how they would sound like? None whatsoever. This is weird. This is all bunches of, scribbles. How do you understand that? Well, there's some good ideas. If you take the root to trace it back from today's standard script, we can go all the way back to this example. This example is what we call Jagu. Jagu is bone script. This archaeological finding discovered not too long ago, 1899. Even Confucius have never had the privilege of seeing this, because this is only discovered 1899, a little bit over 100 years only. That came from the Shang dynasty about 1200 BC, 1,200 years before Christ. As I remember, it's about the time of Moses, 1200 BC. And this script is written in a form that we can trace it back on the right side is the original piece of bone script. This is a shell, a tortoise shell, and it's dried and prepared and is hardened and is using a knife, a sharp edge, to carve the writing on it. So it's translated to today's writing and you can see and we can trace it back to this writing as such. So for those who know how to greet in Chinese, ni hao, the second word, hao, means good. Ni means you. You good. And means how are you? And you look at this graph. On the left, this is a baby. Why do I say that? The proportion of the head is large. You see the hands, you see the body. And how about on the right side? This, the hand folding in a posture. And this is a person who's sitting, kneeling on the floor, like people in Korea and Japan still do. So this character is composed of a child and a mother, or a boy and a girl. Either way is good. Or well. So that's no wonder why people greet each other with this character. How are you? Ni hao. This is hao. Is composed of a boy and a girl. That's good. A child and a mother. That's good too. Is there any sound in there? No. Is there any alphabet there? No. This is pure graphical form. So until you understand that basic fact, that Chinese writing is based on graphics and not sound, you can then begin to learn Chinese. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in the trap of linguistics, trying to, in your expectation, find your imaginary sound bites in Chinese characters, and there's none. Unfortunately, almost 99% of programs today in the United States teaches Chinese as a language, and they teach Mandarin, the language, but not so much about Chinese writing. So my lecture is aimed at bringing one single point to the floor, is that Chinese writing is graphics. If I can do that within the next 20 minutes, I'll be very happy. The genesis of Chinese writing. There are actually pictographs type of writing in ancient civilization. And the second point I'm going to bring to you is to deal with the challenge of the Babel Tower, as it was described in the inscription. The third topic is the invention of the Chinese writing as a system. Here you are. Pictographic writing is not new. In fact, it's very, very old. 32 centuries BC. Cuneiform was found by the Sumerians and is used, carved on a mud-baked kind of tablet. And on the right is an example of the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Both of them are pictographs. For example, the head is like a round with a neck, and you can see that. And hieroglyphs is even more direct. So here's a bird. I think most people would agree that this looks like a bird, right? This is a little worm. Here's your hand. Here's a feather, right? So at first, this hieroglyphs was used to communicate in writing. After this has been used for almost 2,000 years, the Egyptians decided they might find a shortcut to communication by stripping away the meanings of those various pictographs. By that time, they have about 400 of those. And they thought, well, maybe we can use just 20 or 30 of those to represent the sound instead of the meaning. The same thing happened to the cuneiforms. That process of stripping away the meaning from a pictograph and retain the sound value as a letter of an alphabet is called rebus. The process is called the rebus, R-I-B-U-S process. And that is how it was done. See that head, purely a pictograph of a head. You have the head with the eye, with the nose, with the mouth, with the neck. Correct? You see that? That's a head. And then they turn it a little bit at an angle, and later on stylized and abstracted further at this point. And this is the critical jump. That's the quantum jump from here to there. First, the pictograph head was a drawing of the head. And so rotated a little bit, abstracted by about 23rd century BC. After having been used as pictographs for almost 1,000 years, since the 32nd century BC to 23rd century BC, they started to apply the rebus process, strip away the meaning and retain only the sound value. And that is the beginning of the ultimate discovery of alphabetic writing system in the world history. The sign of head is further simplified in Neo-Sumerian by the 3rd millennium, and further on, in another 1,000 years, it showed up in Old Assyrian and later on adopted by Hittites. And the rest is history, as they say. The Aramaic, Phoenicians have further developed the technique of alphabetic writing systems, which is later on adopted by Hebrew, Greek, and then, of course, Roman languages. So, lastly, the simplified cuneiform is written by the Assyrian scribes in the first millennium, start to look like this. It no longer takes advantage of the graphics, but is now turned into a letter of an alphabet. Just like the hieroglyphs, the bird used to represent a bird, and now it stripped away the meaning of bird and retained the sound of ah and written a, and this hand retained the value of b, and the foot retained the value of this b as different tone, and the feather and the hand, and as you can see, this alphabet is now complete. From then on, we don't see any graphical writing system. The only one that survives this process is the Chinese writing. The Chinese keep on pushing it and created a writing system that is continue to be based on graphics. The Chinese writing system survived till today. It has the earliest discovered writing was the one that I showed you earlier with the bone and on the turtle shell, which was dated 12th century or 13th century BC and lasted till today, uninterrupted, continuously being used as the writing for Chinese. And in contrast, the Sumerian stopped being a pictographic writing in the 23rd century BC, and hieroglyphs stopped being the pictographic writing in the 18th century BC. And both completely disappeared and replaced by all those alphabetic language that we now know today. So, now if I ask you the question, why Chinese don't use alphabet, what would you say? They don't use alphabet because they couldn't come up with an alphabet, or because they see the value in retaining the meaning in those characters for conveying meaning rather than conveying the sound. Maybe they believe that spoken languages are much more susceptible to changes and even demise over a long period of time. We've seen languages after languages after languages that has disappeared from our history. Chinese has another problem because the linguistics composition of the words are monosyllabic, meaning one sound, one word. How? Just one syllable. It's not like constitution, substitution, education, multiple syllables. One syllable, one word. And if you have that, you have a problem, spoken-wise, because we have a sound production system that is limited. We can only make so many sounds. The basic sound in the Chinese language has no more than about 400 some syllables. To distribute that among 60,000 characters, what do you get? I mean, it's like 1,000 or more per sound. That's the problem. So, if I say ma, you have to really watch out. What I'm in writing is different. Ma could be ma, could be this, could be this, or could be this. So, when you say ma in sound, without looking at the character, it could be very confusing. Because ma is the sound of the word horse. And it also, because it's monosyllabic, remember, we have only 400 syllables for 60,000 characters. So obviously there's a lot of duplication for sound. One sound could have many different characters meaning different things. Ma also means mother. Ma also means smallpox. Ma also means question. Ma also means ham. And ma also means yelling. Now you don't want to tell your mom is a horse. Nor do you want to yell at your mom. No way. So, this is a quandary. This is the price that Chinese writing has to pay because it is monosyllabic. But, looking backwards, it's also the lifesaver of Chinese writing. Why do I say that? Well, it's a long story, but the modern scholars of Chinese languages have long sought a way of alphabetizing Chinese writing. And they failed, not once, not twice, 3 times. Major national programs for eliminating Chinese writing as characters writing and substituted with alphabets were unable to succeed exactly because of this presumably a disadvantage of the monosyllabic issue. So, inadvertently, Chinese writing is saved and sound and continue to not only survive but prosper. And in fact, the largest volumes of publication today are printed in Chinese characters. So, how about the Babel Tower issue? When people develop so many different languages, how do we get across? You know the problem of cross-culture. Just go to Europe and you can see within an hour of driving, people speak totally different languages. That is a problem. And their writing is representing their own spoken language, is transliterated. So if you read Greek, even modern Greek, written, you can't, for one who is not trained in Greek language, you won't be able to read it. You don't even know the alphabet to start with. So, it is a cause of concern because it minimizes our way of communication or mutual understanding. If I can't understand what you say, or I can't understand what you write. And China basically is not a monolithic nation. It's just like Europe used to be. It has not tens, dozens, but hundreds of different ethnic groups, tribes, nations and states and so on through history. Still today, as recorded and reported by research work called Ethnologue, Languages and the World, in 13th edition by Barbara Grimes in November 2000. She collected 205 living languages in China. Now, if China does not have this character writing, will be in the same quandary as it would be in Europe. And my wife and I would never understood each other. She's from the north, like Sweden. I'm from the south, like Italian. There's no way. And in fact, her father and my father tried to get together for tea. And my dad showed up 10 o'clock in the morning. And her dad showed up 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they call each other and say, "Where were you?" And it turns out 4 and 10 sounds just like mom and the horse and the mother. Sound the same. 4, 10, about the same. Right? And my dad doesn't speak Mandarin. Her father doesn't know a thing about Cantonese either. So there you have the Babel Towers problem. The way the Chinese writing come to aid to solve the problem is by writing. So it's not unusual when I go to lecture in China that I always carry a little notebook in my pocket. And I say, "What did you just say?" So my colleague will start writing, because that is the universal way of communication. Put that in writing. 205 living Chinese languages and dialects was a huge challenge to people of multi-ethnic ethnicity to keep communicating, not across space in geography, from the west to the east or from the north to the south, but also over time. It seems like Chinese culture is a text culture, as we have seen in those examples of the bone script. They started writing history, start writing down or recording events, specifically for their children and their grandchildren and their grandchildren and their grandchildren, to understand what happened or to learn lessons that they have earned. China has, through multiple dynasties, non-stop, every year. The prime minister is like our Secretary of State, has a distinct appointment to be the official historian, to tell it like it is, and tell it the way it happened. And so even today, we receive records after records after records, all the way from the beginning, 1200 BC, till today. We have records of events and commentaries and judges what is right and what's wrong. And his position is to die before he writes something that is prejudiced. In other words, he has an independent office of writing. If the king or the emperor did something wrong, and it happened many times, the brother of a king murdered the king and usurped the power. What does the prime minister supposed to do? He will have to risk his life to write down in record that the king killed, or the brother of the king did murder the king. So that was his job. There's a saying, generals die in battlefields, historians die in writing history. So the Chinese is obsessed with text, because they want to secure those lessons learned for the posterity. So they solve the problem. How do we maintain or preserve this knowledge gained from hardship, from struggles through time? Is by writing. How do we communicate across the vast territory of the domain of the nation? By writing. Not writing based on sound, which may change and susceptible to demise, but by writing in graphics. How? Well, this is how. This is a drawing of a deer. We all know that, right? That's the deer. Just like they might have been running around here too. I have a family of deers in my backyard. It's just like that. And so they stylize that into a drawing like that. And further on, from here, they begin to turn a drawing into abstracted strokes composed of various strokes. And this is the character for deer. That's how they do it. Let's see another example. What do you think? What would you say this is? Yes? What would you say? Fish, right? From here, turn to there, turn to there, turn to here. That's right. And look at this. That's a seashell. Started out as in the bone script, later on, and you can see how we today use this character. We trace back to this one, trace it all the way back to here. That's the graphics. It's a cauldron, a kettle. A kettle is very interesting kettle. This is the people who study physics will tell you this pot heat up the food 3 times faster than the pot that I'm using at home because it has 3 legs. The exposure surface is 3 times as big. But anyway, the idea is in the bone script, the earliest writing system is written this way. You see, all the three parts of the pot is in here. And today is written in this form. And geometrically or graphically, you can see the transformation and the derivation directly from the object itself.
Boy, I hate to even bring this to a close. Isn't this absolutely wonderful? This is outstanding. Doctor is going to stay for a while to answer questions. I know that we have some students who need to leave for class at 1 o'clock. If you need to leave, feel free and do that now. If you can stay, we'll have about 15, 20 minutes of Q&A, so feel free and do that. Tonight at 6:30, we'll have part 2 of this at the Greenville campus in TLC. And also, please don't forget the exhibit that's in our activities building, where you will see what he has put together to show the evolution and the design work of this wonderful calligraphy. I've also learned that ma and ma mean 2 different things. One is go green and one means go blue. So be very careful how you pronounce those during these next few days. So thank you so much, sir, for a wonderful and enlightening presentation today, Dr. Chan.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So if you can stay, please feel free and raise your hand. And I'd like you to stand when you're acknowledged and give your question as loudly as you can. And I might need to repeat that for our video audience, and then we'll go on. When I say audience, it's going to be recorded and put on our website for those who could not be here today. I'm sorry? Yeah, okay, sure. All right, I can pass the microphone around. Who's got a question I can pass the mic around? Feel free. All right, Mrs. Vanderbilt.
I'm Val Vandermark. Welcome. Today, young people text and use a computer keyboard. But that computer keyboard can't possibly fit 4,000 characters.
Right.
So do young people routinely learn the pinyin and the syllabic part or the letter part of writing, and then it translates for them?
Excellent question. And let me show you how. I'm bringing up my notepad. Let's get so I can do pinyin, but this is pinyin keyboard. See it? And when I type ma, see mother comes up, the horse comes up, see the horse? And yelling comes up. Yelling, by the way, is made up of the horse at the bottom and 2 mouths. Yelling is doubling up your sound, right? So 2 mouths is yelling. 1 mouth is talking, right? So, and if I, at this point, ma, because it's monosyllabic, you see how many? Dozens and dozens is more. See, already 20 of them show up. that is written MA. So it's very confusing. So now you can choose one of those. You say, well, I really don't mean mother, I want to horse. Or, you see, any one of those, right? So if I want a horse, I just hit the horse. And horse shows up here on my text. Got it? So far? Now, even better than that, I'm Cantonese. I'm lousy in Pinyin, let's say. I don't know Pinyin. Then what do I do? Even better. Watch. If I want the horse, I just write the horse. Blah, blah, blah. Fast, right? If I want to write mother, see that? If I want to write good, I got good right there. Okay? If I want to write girl and boy, I got that. Boys and girl. How fast that is? Much faster than writing in English. Because, for example, many examples. Liberty. So it's a 3 symbols, right? In Chinese, I just write this. I'm done. Right? So they are texting like crazy right now, using this system. And anyone speaking the 205 languages in China, thanks to Steve Jobs, were able to communicate with Chinese writing fast, like that. And I receive it in seconds from Beijing. This is fantastic. So the Chinese writing is actually much faster. I know a friend who works at the United Nations. He says, every time when we have any publications of the United Nations, the shortest and save us a lot of money is printing Chinese. There's English version, Russian version, Spanish version, and also a Chinese version. Why? Because one word, one character. And the word constitution, how many letters? C-O-N-S-T, right? Could be 12, 15 characters. Chinese is 1 characters, or 2, right? So instead of 100 pages in English, Chinese come up on printing only 60 pages. Save money. Yes, ma'am.
Let me give you the microphone here.
谢谢老师 for coming here, and your wife. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
My son is in the Chinese immersion, and he's in second grade. It's his 3rd year. But I noticed that doing the characters is one of the hardest parts for him. He understands it, he can speak it and read it, but writing it is the most hardest for him. And so, what would you suggest for helping him with that? Is there a specific template to use?
Excellent question. I have just launched, because of this very excellent question, and it's a real challenge, and many school teachers have told me, because I give workshops, and so 5 years ago, I started to think about this problem and come up with an app. Here's the app. It's called I Write Wenzi. You can Google this. It's only on iPad, Apple iPad. So I divided up into 10 categories. Human category, nature, animals, structures, sun and moon, astronomical, food, miscellaneous, color, numbers, and tools. There are 10 lessons in them. Kids love them. They think this is a game. So the character person, or man, a person, see here? If I didn't pay attention, okay. If not done right, it's red. Until I really get it.
Run.
Okay? You got a star. And it spells out.
You said that's only Apple products?
Yes, this is only on Apple iPad.
Is there one that you recommend for Android use?
No, we have not developed a Android version yet.
Okay.
Yeah. And the main thing about this is the approach of tracing it back to the original intent. Why you write it like this? Isn't it crazy to say good or like that? Why? But there's a reason behind it. You see, until the teacher tells the student what those characters means, it was just hard knock. You have the heart memorized, and I don't want to do that.
Right.
And it's boring. Be told by the teacher you have to keep writing it 20 times to get memorized. And I said, well, look, this is a boy and a girl, and it's good. And I said, mom and baby is good, so you can understand. And the other day, I talked to the director of our Center for Chinese Studies. I said, you know, one way to help people to remember things, anything, is when that thing makes sense. Okay? So, this is fire. This is, when I go around here, you have like the corn stalk, grain stalk. This is that. So when you say the stalk is on fire, and guess what? You will never forget that this word means autumn. You won't. The stalk is on fire, just like the maple trees. Yeah? And now, you say, well, pictographs, how can you use pictures to represent feelings? Yes, you can. I'll show you how. This is the heart with 3 chambers. Pretty accurate, isn't it? And then when you add this, this is the character for being sad or sadness. Heart of autumn. The autumn heart. Autumn heart. And autumn is made up of stalks, grain stalks, and fire. And she said, wow, I will never forget that. I have not even practiced drilling it.
I try to help him, but I've only had 1 semester of
Right.
Mandarin, and so like I said, he's been at it for 3 years. So
Right. Yeah.
Like, Mom means
Right. And there are, why don't I do this? If you have an email address, later on you can leave it with me. I'll send you a reference. You can buy, there are a couple of books that I think is quite good along this line that explain the meaning, how those characters came about and how is it constructed. And unfortunately, in the current situation, the syllabus that we're using in Chinese teaching, Chinese language, is totally on the language, on the spoken way, but not on the writing side. And so your child having problem is a very normal thing. Okay. Yeah, all over the at U of M, we are going to have a major breakthrough this coming November. We'll be training new teachers about this methodology. This is called the etymology pedagogy, meaning teaching through understanding of the roots of those characters. This is a very new program, and unfortunately, very few or practically no time is allowed in the current syllabus to go into this kind of teaching.
Okay,
and we hope that we'll be able to break some ground.
Thank you for that. I think we have time for one more question if we have one in the room. All right. Reverend Yoder, sir. By the way, I think I'm hearing him say it's time for an apple gift for Christmas.
How does the Chinese language handle the concept of grammar as in tenses? Is there a different word, like I say, I go to town or I went to town? Is that a different pictograph for went or go? How do you convey tenses in the Chinese language?
Excellent question. No, it does not do that. There's no conjugation, no tenses, no numbers, no genders. In German, we have der, die, das. None of that we have, right? And so, to your question, how the Chinese handle that? They just say, yesterday I go. Tomorrow I go. Would you misunderstand me? No, you. Right? So I don't need to use the grammatic method of changing the spoken word. The character is a constant, is an invariant, not to be changed, no matter how you use it. There's no prefix, there's no suffix. Don't look for it, there's none. There's no prefix, no suffix, no changing it. So, for example, typically, education, for example, actually started with Jews. And then you have e-Jews. And then you take this out, and then education. And so on. You can make all kinds of words with this method. Chinese doesn't do that. Chinese, the word maybe I can use this. If I break it up, this is two hands. Two hands. These are the sticks for teaching arithmetic or teaching formation of words. This is the table, just like this. This is, again, is the child. So in other words, the teacher, two hands of the teacher, working with the teaching sticks on a table with a child. So everything is go by graphics. So it doesn't matter whether yesterday he learned, or tomorrow he shall learn, or today he learned, or she learned, or she learns, he learns, I learn. None of that. No tense, no gender. Very simple. That's a great advantage. You should really study Chinese. No grammar, no tenses, no gender, no conjugation, no instrumental, like in Russian or Greek. Oh my God, the Russian is so difficult for me. And German's a little bit better. But you see here, it goes by meaning. How the character is constructed is based on graphical meaning. So for those who study graphic arts, this is a grand playing field. So the two hands with the learning tools on the table with the child. That is the word for learn. So,
very good. I'll tell you, I have learned far more in this hour than I ever thought I would and could. So I really appreciate your careful, deliberate, and very articulate presentation, sir. And again, we thank you for being here today. Let's say thank you one more time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So if you can tonight, 6:30 at TLC in Greenville, come on back for part 2. And in the meantime, certainly walk down the hall and enjoy the wonderful exhibit. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.